Good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of Doctor2Doctor in the chat room where we discuss relevant topics that impact our communities and our world. I'm always elated to have you guys here with me during this hour. And as I always say, thank you for coming back each Saturday because if you didn't come back to do this with me and share this time with me, I would not be able to do what I do. So a huge thank you to all of you that support this show and this hour. Today, we're still talking about relationships. We're in the relationship arena and we're going to tackle life, love, and everything in between, all things relationships today. As we dive deep into the world of relationships, we have a special guest joining us today, Coach Los. He's a relationship coach who's here to help us decode the mysteries of love, communication, and connection. Whether you're in a relationship, whether you're single, or just curious about how to build stronger bonds, this is a conversation you don't want to miss. So settle in and let's talk love and relationships. Our guest today is Coach Los, who is a certified life and relationship coach and a motivational speaker at Life Relationship Coach of Rewired. Coach Lowe's helps people fix their relationships or find the relationship that they want without endless therapy and dating burnout, using his relationship rulebook method. And we're going to talk about what that is in just a moment. But we are so elated to have him here with us in the chat room on Doctor2Doctor in the chat room today. And I just want to welcome him to the stage and tell him how much we appreciate him being with us here today. I am so happy to have you here. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to come and sit in with us in the chat room today.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's always good to be invited places.
Yeah. So I just want to start here. Like how did you land here doing this work?
hmm Well, I mean, I think the my personal opinion, the best way you ever can. I went through my own experiences, right? So,
Yeah.
across 12 years, three different relationships in that time period, I went through some really, the school hard knocks, rough learning
Yeah.
lessons and things,
Uh-huh.
right? And I had a 5-year relationship where I went through a lot of mistreatment that I endured, right?
Hmm.
And then I had a relationship where, I learned I wasn't leading well as a man or didn't know what that even meant at the time, right? And that ended from,
Yeah.
some of the things that I wasn't showing up as. And then, the one right after that, that I wasn't properly living by my own standards and things. And it was obviously at the time I didn't recognize that's what was happening.
Hmm.
But hindsight, looking back, those were the things that made me press that big red stop button, as I always call it, to
Yeah.
where I stopped dating for a bit and said, no, I got to figure this out. I don't want to go through this again or anymore. I'm sick of it being the same overall end result, even though it's different relationship situations for different
Hmm.
reasons, but it's
Hmm.
still painful breakups and all that. So that's what led me to the work
Yeah.
initially.
Interesting because I think that's one of the things that we just as humans struggle with, saying that, hey, time out. Let me just take some time
hmm
and, realize who I am, work on me,
Yeah.
so that I can be a better person for a relationship. I think a lot of us struggle with that because people don't like being alone.
Yeah, very true. And look, I think the thing is, even when I think back to when I initially started going on that journey of what I call is like your transformation, right, or that
Hmm.
evolution, I wasn't thinking, oh, let me go and do this work on myself so I can be better for
Okay.
the next person, right? That was the initial thought back then. The
Uh-huh.
initial thought was, I don't want to repeat this experience, right? It was, which is literally the bread and butter of, I guess, why people even come to me for help, right? It's, you're thinking about the pain. And I didn't want the
Yeah.
pain anymore. Now, granted, I've never been a extremely selfish person or anything like that. So I was thinking of, wow, how have I been showing up in these relationships, even the ones where I got the short end of the stick. Like,
Hmm.
where is there a role on my side? And I think it was through that journey as I started really learning, oh my gosh, if I'm going to have the relationship I want or get the lifestyle I want or have the dating I want, then I have to be considerate of the people in that world or that person in my world.
Hmm. I,
And
I
then, yeah.
I agree, and I think that's another rarity for us to ask the question to ourselves, like, what was my part in this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
1,000%. And it's a hard
yeah,
question to ask because,
it is.
yeah, none of us wants to be the bad guy, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, if when you have to ask that question, it's sometimes scary with the answers, maybe because it means now you have to do the most difficult thing and change.
yeah. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wow, yeah. So when I was introducing you, I was sharing with the audience that you use this rule book method, a relationship rule book method.
Mm-hmm.
What is the rule book method?
Yeah, so I love that question, right? Like I said, I rarely get to actually like talk or break that down unless someone's sitting in
Okay.
front of me as a client, right? But
Yeah.
in short, without making it too loaded, it's really just a way of dotting your I's and crossing your T's on your standards and your boundaries and where they meet in the middle and the experience you require to uphold those things, right?
Mm,
So a lot of people go into dating and into their relationships and don't really have a vetted sense of what their actual standards and boundaries are. Yeah, we instinctively or instinctually know some things, right? We'll know that we don't like when someone talks to us a certain way that doesn't feel
yeah.
good, or we'll know we prefer to, I don't know, live life at a certain type of level, but we've rarely actually documented that stuff, right? And really put it
Right.
in front of our own eyes and strength test it, and then broken down why those things are as they are. So the
Mm-hmm.
rule book is kind of really the actualizing and the written version of what's up here in your head as far as your standards and as far as those boundaries go. And then vetting why those things are as such intangibles, right? See, the big piece where I think most of us miss it with anything in life a lot of times is that as humans, we kind of naturally think conceptually, not tangibly,
Mm-hmm.
even though
Mm-hmm.
we live in a tangible world
Yeah.
and we seek tangible results. And so when it comes to standards and boundaries, a lot of people don't articulate that into what does it look like in practice? And why is that the thing that I've decided is required for me to be the version of myself I want to be? Or why is
Mhm.
this required that it can't happen to make sure I'm not impacted negatively, right? And so
Yeah.
the rule book takes those two sides, puts the tangibles to it, and then it says, all right, how am I living to it? Because a relationship rule book is not just about how someone else is going to come into your life and has to show up. It's a rule
Mm-hmm.
book for whoever's in the relationship, yourself included. So how well am
Okay.
I living to those standards and those boundaries? And then what does it look like in practice when the right person in my life is living to my standards and honoring my boundaries in return?
Ooh, them boundaries, man. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're in this space of the holiday season,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is a really tough time for a lot of reasons, but single people in particular, they seem to struggle some during
Yeah.
the holiday season. What would be your advice to anyone that's single in this
Mm-hmm.
space?
So, my first and foremost, look at it as an opportunity, not a moment of void, right? I think the thing that most of us do, but it makes sense, right? The all the commercials and society, they do all the things that show you, oh, this is the time to be with the special significant other, or
Yeah,
and there's the marketing behind it and the spending of it too, right? It's like, yes,
yeah,
you do want someone to celebrate with their partner, but at the same token,
yeah.
though, it helps if they're buying stuff for their partner, right? So I
Hmm.
think people see that all the time, and whenever the holidays come around, it instinctively puts them in a headspace of looking at what they don't have if it doesn't match what they see on a billboard or they don't see on a commercial.
Yeah, we
But
want to wear those matching PJs.
yeah, right. You want that, right? And you're looking and you're seeing the couple with the matching PJs on the the
Yeah,
cover, right? You're like,
yeah.
oh gosh, I don't have this person. And so, my advice or suggestions to anyone in that space is always, hey, where yes, you may not have that significant other that's ideal for you,
Hmm.
but look at the opportunity it's created for you to connect with yourself on a deeper level like you never have, right?
Yeah,
Look at this moment to really foster and build something that's special the way you would with someone else in your life, because you need that relationship with yourself first to be strongest before you can have a successful one with someone outside of yourself,
hmm,
right? And the other thing would be is that's also an opportunity to connect in a deeper way with your friends and family, right? See,
yeah.
oftentimes we don't think about the idea of what a partner is really symbolic of in our lives, right? Everything we do is to meet a need. And the biggest need, obviously, is connection and even the need for significance when it comes to having someone in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you're feeling this huge void from them not being there, this is your best opportune time to either find other outlets or support systems to connect with and feel special by, and to provide yourself that sense of being special and
Yeah.
feeling like you're loved and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the recipe for a healthy relationship? What does a healthy relationship look like? Someone
Yeah.
someone searching for one and they, or in one and trying
Yeah.
to figure out like, yeah, is this healthy?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that question. And so, it looks like what you would think it should look like. Let's start there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously it's different strokes, different folks.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever all of us, I believe, think about a healthy relationship, we see a certain imagery in our minds, do we not? Like you see a
You
certain,
do.
right? You see experience happening. You
You do.
see,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you see something that looks happy, it looks fun, it looks bubbly. Anytime in that vision space, you see you guys maybe holding hands and you're smiling all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe you're off walking in the park, you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, right? And then you start breaking down, all right, what are the components that creates that? So it's like whenever you're having conversations and dialogue, it looks like both people being heard, right? It looks like,
Mm.
you're both communicating clearly and directly, but then it feels like, oh, I feel like I'm connected to my partner more now. I don't feel like I came out of this and I feel like, oh, I'm on an island by myself and they don't get me at all, or they don't even want to
Mm-hmm.
get me, or it's all about
Mm-hmm.
them. No, I feel like, oh my gosh, we connected. I learned something about them I didn't know. And I feel confident that we can tackle anything together. Right. And, I mean, we can always obviously keep going, but it's just in all those kind of facets, right? It looks like we're planning life together in a way that we both feel good about and we agree to what our plan is and we're going the same
Mm-hmm.
direction, right? It doesn't feel like pulling teeth to align our values, right? It's like it doesn't seem like we're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole with things that actually are just fundamentally on different ends of the spectrum for both of us, but we're trying to make it work because we enjoy the same movies and things, or we have some chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you talked about when you were in that place of saying, "Hey, I don't want to ever be here anymore."
Yeah.
The the way you approach relationships now, or the
Mm.
relationship that you have now,
Yeah.
is it noticeably different as a result? Uh,
Oh, what? Rhonda, is it? It is night and day. You about to give me cursing. It's night and
yeah,
day.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
So,
no, no,
so
yeah.
and I would imagine like very enjoyable. Like,
What is it's euphoric,
so
you know?
wow, I like that. So how did you, because you're who you are because of your lived experience, right?
Right.
Um, how did you get your person like to kind of
Mm.
be in that space with you? I hope I'm asking this question right.
No, yeah, I think you are. You're at
Okay.
see, and I love it the way you asked it because that is exactly the way most people that come to work with me
Mm-hmm.
are seeing. That's the angle they're seeing it from. And
Okay.
so, and let me say this too, by the way, me getting to what I do as a coach and things is not just from the experiences. I definitely, once I got to the other side and I realized, oh my gosh, I want to do this for my life. I want other people to feel this way. I want people to be in my
Mm-hmm.
shoes. And
Mm-hmm.
this is before I even had the relationship that I decided I wanted to be the coach.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I just want people to live life this vibrantly. And then from there, I started really getting intentional about, all right, if I'm going to do this, it can't just be off my experience alone. I have to go learn tools and skills and learn
Oh
different
yeah.
techniques
Yeah.
to help,
Yeah.
right? All the
Mm-hmm.
things. And
Mm-hmm.
so to answer your question, though, what it was is it's not a matter of going to go find a partner and catch them up to speed. You have to become the thing and attract the thing to you.
Ooh,
So, so for me, it was really when I got on the other side of that transformation,
that hurt.
right? It's a thing, and that's really what it took. And I always say, I didn't go find her at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
I drew her to me, and she drew me to her, right? And just to that point, I want to just say this because I think sometimes people think these things can be fairy tale, and it can, oh, that's you, or you're just coach, of course, right?
Yeah.
But I lie to you not. So I went to, a college in Philadelphia, went to Temple,
Mhm.
and being there, I went to school there for however many years it was, and or put it like this, I was there in that city for 20 years, and for 12 of it, me and my partner were at 6 degrees of separation. Went to the same college, but I never knew she existed at school.
Wow.
Right? I know people she knows that I'm like, oh wow, I know them directly. Never knew she existed. She didn't know I existed until years later after college. I did the work on myself, and she did the work on herself because she had her story too. And
Mhm.
then now we aligned on the same frequency, and then boom, I meet her literally a month after I came out of that full transformation. I can't make it up if I tried, right?
You couldn't. No.
Right? And
What an amazing story.
yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things where you really have to become what you want in your life.
Mm. And I want to talk about that part more. How,
Sure,
like
sure.
um how do you I've heard this before, attracting what you want, being what you want to attract. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, how do you
How do
do
you
it?
blend that in the middle, right? Now, it is funny when I get asked these questions. My mind always goes to how do I condense this really loaded thing
Uh-huh.
into some concise, words, right? And I'm getting pretty good at it. But what I'll say is, when we talked about that relationship rule book, see, and everything that I do and that I coach from is designed around you becoming that ideal self so you can
Mhm.
have the ideal relationship. Whether you're already in the relationship and you need to make your adjustments, because here's the thing people don't usually talk about, right? It's like no matter what your relationship issues are, you
Mhm.
always have a role in them. Either there's something you're doing that's contributing to the problem or something you're
Yeah.
not doing that's contributing to the problem. But
Mhm.
if there is a problem that is ongoing, you are a part of it as well, right?
Mhm.
You have a role. So I
Mhm.
say that to say, when we talk about that relationship rule book, it comes back to those standards. See, those standards is a real loaded thing because standards equates to requirement of living in order to be me. Your standards really is who you identify with, right? Because
Mhm.
when you're living below what your standards are, then now you feel like you're slowly deteriorating, right? You don't feel like
Yeah.
the person you see in the mirror is not who you're operating as, and so you feel bad because you're not
Mhm.
exuding, you're not what I call is honoring your value,
Yeah.
right? And so
Mhm.
those standards, when you get really clear on them, you really vet them, meaning how do I need to operate all full circle to be the happy, best, whole version of myself? And once you're really truly doing that and living that way, even honoring your boundaries, right? Meaning you don't flex on your standards and you
Mhm.
don't let your own boundaries down, and you make anyone around you have to live to those same requirements or reflect them to be in your life or
Mhm.
honor or respect those boundaries, then now you start to align with what is who you're supposed to be to get
Mm.
who you want to have. Now, I want to say one little thing in there because we can get to this our core 6 human needs and all the things that you have to make sure you're hitting the mark on all of them. That's what
Okay.
goes into your standards. But the main one that I'll call out the most that really drives it home is we have the need for fulfillment, right? Meaning that the sense
Yes.
to have a sense of purpose,
Mhm.
right? Now, people have different takes or perspectives on what that purpose is or means, but I've come to understand it as we all have the same purpose, right? Which is we're
Mhm.
all here to serve the whole that we come from, put back into the pot that we take from, right? Because at the end of the day, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we not mostly feel great whenever we're giving love and receiving love?
Absolutely.
Right? And
Mhm.
so the only way to really feel like you're living a life full of purpose is if you follow whatever your quote unquote calling is, right? Meaning the gifts you have that the creator, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, gave you particularly,
Mhm.
and a passion you have around those gifts, right? Something you really enjoy, that part's about you, and then
Yeah.
how you can bring it to the world in service of something beyond yourself, one person or many or organization or whatever, to make this place a little bit better. And so
Mhm.
I say that because whenever you start to align with something like that, then now you start crafting your life around it. Because if you love what you're doing, you know how that saying goes, when you do
Yeah.
what you love, you never work a day in your life,
Never work. Mhm.
right? And so if you're doing something you really love and you're so passionate about, but then you also see that it's helping people's lives, Now you want to do it even more and do it even better. And what
Right.
happens? You start shaping your life around that. You're like, this is so important to me that other things in my life have to be a contribution to this, and that starts creating what a schedule for you. It starts creating a way of living. And so when you do that, now it starts putting you in different places at different times around certain people. Now you start becoming more particular about who you accept into your energy space, because it might ruin what you're doing that is so big work that you love, because it makes you feel valuable, makes you feel special, makes you feel
Mhm.
important, makes you feel
Mhm.
loved by people, makes you feel
Mhm.
reassured and certain of who you are, and it gives you a sense of growth, which, you're not growing, you're dying. We all need growth. And you get to feel that sense of excitement and newness from new experiences coming along. So you wouldn't trade that for the world. So
Right.
anyone or any places that don't support that, you're going to spend less time around. But whenever
Right.
you're only going to places like that, that only feeds your spirit, builds you up in things, so you get to feel great, and you're only around people like that, you tend to put yourself around the ideal partners, because if they're there too, there's a good chance they share some of the same core values and direction in life.
Man, gosh, you condensed it. I love it.
I feel like I did a decent
Yeah.
job, I think.
So I've been following you for a while now on social media,
Okay, awesome. Glad to have
and
you.
you spelled out three green flags
Hmm.
that say men are considerate, and I know every woman wants to know how to know this. And we're going to talk about it on the other side of break. We're already at a break, and we'll be right back on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room with Coach Los in a moment. And we are still here on 94.7 FM, 94.7 FM, WOJG.com with Coach Los. And he is talking about all things relationships. As
Yes.
we were going to break, I was asking you, how do we women know that men are considerate? Tell us. Tell us the
Yeah.
secret.
So yeah, absolutely. And let me say this too, right? You mentioned, hey, like follow me, and in one of the posts I put up, I was talking about that. I just want to say disclaimer, I make so much content, and this
Mm-hmm.
information is so loaded into my mind. A lot of times I don't remember exactly the things I gave,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
because it's so loaded in, I can always like bring it to 3 or 4. Heck, we can go and create 5 or 10 if you want, right? But
Okay.
in short, the way you know if a man is considered, I'll break it down like this. One, we have to understand, how men typically tend to operate. Because although as people, we all have the same needs, depending on the energy base you sit in mainly, which is masculine or feminine,
Mm-hmm.
typically tends to shape the way you operate in respect to those energy bases value wise, right? So when I say that, I mean, we have to think about are the things that men tend to value most in their masculinity, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we always look at what that base is paired with the healthy version of it, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or even toxic femininity, but those energies can be used in toxic ways, right? And that's what people mean when they say toxic masculinity, meaning it can be a man or a woman, right? Because we all have feminine, masculine, and feminine energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Mm-hmm.
it's about how are you operating? Are you operating in a really toxic way, leaning into the energy base that is most comfortable to you,
Mm-hmm.
or are you being healthy with that? And so, when we think that way, when you look at a man, masculine wise, some of his biggest values and priorities for himself is what he builds and his ability to like protect and provide, because it helps him feel like that king that he wants to feel like. It helps
Mm-hmm.
his confidence. It feeds his ego to be confident to go out there and take on the world. It's like it's a reciprocal loop. And if he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have all those kind of working together, kind of falls apart. Now, a man that's healthy, that lives that way and understands that, it's not only just for his woman, it's a priority for him to feel like the man he wants to be and live by his morals and his principles, if he's making sure his woman is provided for. Because how can he be her provider and her protector if she's not feeling considered, if he's not considerate towards her? So I just
Okay.
want to lay that as like the framework. But when we start
Mm-hmm.
talking about signs that let you know that he is, you start looking at, all right, if that is his value base, then would he not maybe show appreciation to you for the small things or even the big things, the value that you add to his life? Would he
Mm-hmm.
not try to like celebrate that with you, to show, hey, I see you, and not, you're not just like here and it's all about me doing my thing and you're like, just along for the ride, but no, here's why you matter a lot here. The way he tries to make sure he's thoughtful towards you, considering you, right? He may be a leader, but his job as a leader is to understand whoever is following him and to take counsel as well from whoever's part of his equation. So
Mhm.
how well does he let you be heard, right? Does he actually take the time to sit and hear your feelings and not just hear them, but understand them? And then show you through his actions that, hey, I'm getting it, right? To where the consideration is in not trying to come in and dictate you, it's to
Mhm.
collaborate with you, right? And
Yeah.
just as much as whenever he's making plans, does he just blindly go and do? Now, and I get it. Sometimes you're like, hey, yeah, just plan the date. Don't come ask me about the date. Go
Right.
take the
Right.
date,
Right.
right? But
Mhm.
is he just making major life decisions for you guys on his own without even coming to consider you or rope you into the equation? Or is he not?
Mhm.
Right? Is he being considerate towards things that are special to you and that you may like? To remember the small things that you shared with him in different conversations, to where he's considerate to actually pay attention to. All right, let me log that in and come back and bring that to the equation in some way, so that she knows, hey, I'm here to make sure you get the experience you want just as much as I've experienced that I
So this masculine thing, I hear so much about that,
want.
and and my perception, my personal perception, and that's just based on lived experience. Like
Yeah,
I, I've been that woman that's had to kind of do it all for myself and my kids, and I've been
yeah,
in leadership roles most of my adult life and all of
yeah,
that. And
yeah.
I feel like I know, how to taper that when I need to or whatever. But I feel like when I've met guys that may have a sense of intimidation, the first thing they say is, I bring masculine energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I want, like we were talking about kind of going inside and looking at yourself, right? Like, I
Yeah,
really don't want to be that woman bringing masculine energy in a toxic way,
right,
you know?
right. Absolutely, absolutely.
But I just wonder, like, do we get a pass for for having to have been
For
in
having things,
certain
yeah.
roles, or like, how do you, I don't know, how do you navigate that and how do you manage that in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And I think, well, one, it's not about necessarily the past, it's about we all deserve grace, right?
Mm,
And let me
mhm,
just say this. So at the core, like I think I said earlier, nobody wants to be the quote unquote bad guy. Nobody
mhm,
nobody gets
mhm,
up and chooses
mhm,
to be the villain, right? That's like,
mhm,
you know, when we are operating in ways that can be deemed negative or hurtful or
mhm,
what have you, it's usually coming from a space of void or lack or whatever,
mhm.
because at the end of the day, we're all built off of like a positive love vibration, right? That's why we love
Right.
to give love and receive it, because that's kind of what we are. And that's why we
Yeah.
don't like to go to bed at night feeling like we're not good people. So I
Right.
say that because anytime you experience something from someone that is not a loving one, especially if there's someone in your life that is a loved one to you, it's a cry for help, right? And so I say that because if you're coming to an equation dating with someone, if you're dating a man, or if you're, a man dating a woman that gets it and has kind of done the work and understands these dynamics, then they can understand your story and offer a level of grace, right? Now, the part on your end where the awareness comes in
Mm.
is, and this is where vetting comes full circle. It's
I like
okay.
that word, vetting. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. It's like probably I probably use that word most in my vocabulary as a
Mhm,
coach, amongst a few others, right?
mhm,
Because
mhm,
it's always about how am I operating, or what am I doing, or what is the plan or the goal, and why. Let me break down and solidify why and make sure that it's accurate for me. And a lot of
mhm,
people aren't doing that. So when it comes to your journey, right? You said, hey, I've come from having to be in this, power positions and so forth. Nothing wrong with that. But then it's always checking yourself and asking, okay, but how do I want to operate in a relationship?
okay.
And so the more you put on your conscious radar, the more you can start to identify, all right, well, how do I tend to show up in a relationship now versus how I want to? And then let me pair and see, is it in alignment? And if
Mm,
it's not, then all right, what do I maybe need to do or let go of or deal with internally or emotionally so that I don't have to feel like I need to step into my more of our masculine energy whenever I want him to take that role on.
Yeah.
But here's the other piece I want to add in there real fast. So when you ask yourself that question as a woman, the other part you have to automatically ask yourself as well is the man I'm looking to relinquish this, masculine side of it to, can he
Woo.
do the job?
Woo.
Right? That's the piece. And see, that's where a lot of people, men or women, but definitely women in this lane, get into a bottleneck because you're like, well, I'm used to being independent,
Yeah.
but so you're like, I know I might need to lean back some, but if you got the wrong guy in front of you that can't do
That's
the
right.
job, then now you're like, I know I'm supposed to be like kind of falling back on the masculine stuff, but it don't feel right. It doesn't feel good
And
to
that's
do
my
it.
fear, and if I'm being really transparent, it
Yeah.
hasn't necessarily been that, that guy may not have been able to, like, take the reins and, what I'm saying, and hold things down or whatever. It was
Mm-hmm.
just that fear
Yeah.
that, oh, I've got it all together over here.
Mm-hmm.
And if I relinquish,
Yeah.
and it falls apart.
Yeah, and I love it. So look, and you saying that, right? So then that starts telling you, and this is why I love the vetting. What we're doing right now is a vetting process.
Yeah.
So notice you sitting there because I'm always picking up on like what's the key pieces that matter towards the vetting. And so what you said was, a lot of times it wasn't necessarily the man can't hold down that job.
That's
So what I'm hearing
right.
is he can do that part. All right. So if he has his side, then the only thing left is, all right, then what is blocking within me? What do I
Mm-hmm.
need to make a peace with that maybe in my
Mm-hmm.
journey to this point, I've had to have this muscle of doing it on my own that is not necessary here in this season or this stage or this space. And
Mm-hmm.
what is it asking for from me to
Mm-hmm.
relinquish it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would be the feminine equivalent? That's a really good question for women to ask themselves. So I'm used to getting this thing done, getting this goal accomplished through my masculine energy. What would it look like in the feminine version? Right?
I
So
love that.
yeah,
I'm jotting
yeah.
it down.
I hope yeah, jot it down. So it's like even if you think about it, right? Let's say you're as a woman, you're independent and you're used to like taking care of a lot of tasks on your own. And
Mm-hmm.
so the man comes to your life, as men, because we like to build stuff and feel prideful about what we build. We feel prideful like the king and your champion. We get to do stuff for you. If we don't have anything to do for you, we don't get to be who we want to be to you, right? So let's say you're used to doing these things on your own as an independent woman. Man comes into your life and he's like, he wants to step and do these things, but you're like, oh, I got it, I got it, I got it. And he's like trying to find this area, like, I can't even be a man. So then if you ask yourself, well, shoot, this is the masculine way for me to go ahead and just be assertive and stern and take care of it and just knock it out. But how would I do this in the feminine way? So maybe the answer could be, all right, I'll go to the man I want to pass the masculine energy to and ask him, hey, I have these XYZ things. Can you help me with that? Can you do that? And can it be done this way or at this amount of frequency or at these times? That way, you're still almost using a sense of that masculine to be clear and direct about something, but maybe you're saying it in the, hey, honey, hey, baby, I
A
really could use help
feminine
with this. I would love it.
equivalent.
Right. I would love it if, whenever a man goes and takes care of, these tasks for me, whenever I'm busy, it just makes me feel so great. I just feel like I'm so safe with him. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Things
Mm-hmm.
like that to where you inspire him to he sees opportunity to be her champion. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm getting to it to where you're still being very organized,
Mm-hmm.
but you're delegating responsibility to the person that you would prefer to actually have it. And now you offer them the chance to prove that they're trustworthy with the duty. Because anytime you have a habit, right? Because we have paradigms, and that paradigm builds off of the way you live. That collection of habitual activity is from repetition, and you're getting good results from the repetition. So your subconscious learns, hey, this makes sense. We're supposed to keep doing this. So the only way to start changing that pattern and break it is you have to start getting clear on what would be the solution that could work in the opposite if it's what I want. If I can identify that's really what I want, not what I'm doing, then discipline, 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 and blindly follow that vetted plan to give it
Mm-hmm.
time to replace the old paradigm to become the new one, right? Because those old habits don't die easy. And if you know they're impacting the results you want to get, then now you have to get clear on what could be the better result that I want that ropes my partner in. And then now what do I need to give them an opportunity to prove to me over time, so that the more I see them doing the thing, the more I'll slowly stop feeling the necessity to do it myself.
You know, I'm going to the next question, but you've simplified that so, and it just brought to mind the quote that I saw you had, and I'm going to read
Yeah,
that now because it
yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of fits. Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
said, "Don't overcomplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy relationships feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
They let's see, unhealthy ones feel dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
ask yourself, how do you feel?"
Yep. 100%.
And
And
everything you're breaking down is just so simplified. And I know, when we try to implement those things, it takes
mm-hmm.
work. And especially if it's not something that you typically practice, you know.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but I do think it's simple, and it can be so, what did you say, euphoric?
Yeah. To
If
get the
we
other
just take the
side.
time to do the work.
100%. And look, and I want to add there to what you said about that quote, right? Now, a lot on Facebook or when that quote is usually posted, you got to keep the characters down to a certain size to keep the aesthetic there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
and so there's usually a very loaded message in all of my quotes that I put up there, but it's
Hmm.
intentional that I don't say it all out because I want your mind to work on it. And so
Hmm.
notice you say, hey, healthy relationships don't overcomplicate it, right? The healthy ones feel safe, the other ones feel the unhealthy ones feel dangerous.
Hmm.
And so most people's minds will immediately go to, well, am I feeling like I'm cared for here? Which you should ask these things. Am I
Hmm.
feeling like we communicate well? Do I feel like they
Hmm.
care? Do I feel like I'm loved? And things like that. And if I'm not feeling that way, then something's off, right?
Hmm.
And what I'll say to that is, and that's fine. You should think that way first. That's usually
Yeah.
most of us think in a self-preserving kind of way, right? We think
Hmm.
self-preservation. So your first thought is, am I getting what I need to survive the right way? Because primal
Hmm.
wiring says that, right? And
Hmm.
so you should do that. And the reason why I say don't overcomplicate it and I put it that way is because, your spirit doesn't lie. It knows at the end of the day what's best for you. Even
Hmm.
it's our job to discover or become aware of what our spirit already knows. So whenever it doesn't feel good and your intuition's going off a certain way, that's because it's coming from the essence of what you're really built on, which is that love. And nothing that's not positive or not healthy doesn't align with that. So therefore, it triggers your spirit to send you a signal through that intuition and all those things, right? So yeah, you should look up and say, well, how's it feeling in that way? But just in return, you should be asking yourself, well, why doesn't it feel this way if it doesn't feel easy and harmonious, right? Because it can
Hmm.
be because your partner is doing things that are very unhealthy and toxic in respect to you,
Hmm.
or it could be that you have unhealed wounds and they're not doing anything wrong, or it can be both. So
Right.
that statement, that slogan, if you will, is really, you have to look at all the angles, right? And if you truly do all the angles, and then you come to a conclusion on, okay, well, if it feels dangerous, does it feel dangerous because my partner's coming there talking to me wild and reckless, or it's always we have all these fights,
Hmm.
or does it feel dangerous because no matter how much they come and try to love on me and make me feel reassured that they're
Yeah.
trustworthy, I won't let them in because I got hurt in the past to where I don't know if I'm ready for that, to where I
Yeah.
feel dangerous internally, they don't, but the relationship does. And
Mm.
it takes two for that relationship to be anything it's going to feel like.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So in the space of singlehood, people sometimes meet the other person's representative.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are people coming as a representative, and how can we avoid the representative? I want to talk about that one on the other side.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
at another break. This is such a great conversation, and it's happening very fast. We'll be right back. Dr. the Doctor in the chat room with Coach Los in just a moment. All right, Coach, tell me about this representative. Like, why is it
Yeah.
happening? How do we avoid that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first, let me say this is a disclaimer. I can't stand the term representative, but I'll tell you why in a moment. But I get it. It helps us
Yeah.
dissect and digest when we put a label to things.
Uh
And but the
huh.
reason why I don't like representative is because it it suggests this kind of like intention to be disingenuous, or or not
Mhm.
authentic, right? It
Mhm.
suggests this person is showing up, putting on the front until they get what they
Mhm.
want, kind of
Yep.
thing, right?
Absolutely.
But what I actually believe, because look, remember, I never forget the core foundation, right? None of us wants to be the bad guy.
Right.
Everything we do is to meet a need. So the only time we do things that sometimes makes us look like the bad guy or we're operating as that is if we don't understand who we are fully or having a
Mhm.
hard time operating as such person.
Mhm.
So when I say that, I firmly believe whenever someone shows up and they're dating in the beginning, now some people, let me say this, some people are out here not serious and they're trying to just, bamboozle you and get what they want, right?
Mhm.
But more often than not, people are out here for something, but they haven't prepared themselves for what they want. So
Wow.
here's what I mean by that, right? So the representative is, think about like of a job. If you
Mhm.
were going to get, you went on an interview for a job. I don't know about you, but I've never shown to an interview for a job and not put my best foot forward and not wasn't out there all smiles and I was like,
Absolutely.
yeah, got my best suit on.
One
I'm
dressed
looking
like you typically dressed.
exactly. I'm dressed in a certain ways. I'm making sure my words are more articulate. All the
Mhm.
things that it wouldn't be normal. Now, am I trying to be fake when I do this? No. Am I trying to put up this representative up front? No. But I'm
Mhm.
excited about this opportunity and I want them to know that I can do this job. I'm your guy. I'm excited for it. It's gonna be a great relationship.
Pick me.
Right. I want you to understand, like, I'm the person, like I'm really
Mhm.
them, I'm really him, right? And
Mhm.
so what happens? You go, you do great. Wow, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. You get the job. Now you get the job, just say 4, 6 months to a year later, are you still showing up exactly that same way that you did on that interview? Most likely not. But
Mhm.
not because you were being fake, but because after that fresh new car smell, the excitement that had you so inspired started wearing off. Now what's left is what your actual conditioning is. So when we meet that representative, it's usually someone showing up and they're excited about this new person in you that they get to meet. They're getting to learn. They love the chemistry. They're attracted to you. So they're so excited. And as time goes and that excitement wears down because they're getting more normalized to you, then if they didn't build all those characteristics and attributes they have that are they possess them, but if they didn't build the habit to be able to do it all the time, like they showed it to you in the very beginning before all the dopamine wore off, then
Mhm.
now you're experiencing their norm, but they're not aware that they've shifted because they were just riding on the fumes,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so you look up and you're like, well, you changed now. And they're like, what do you mean I changed? Or here's the other part of it. A lot of times, because you are in your own skin, people don't realize that they showed up with a version of a representative to the other person and they've shifted what they used to be doing and the other person is responding to that subconsciously through their actions. And
Huh.
so it's a two-way street. Now, sometimes maybe one way, but it's usually two-way because you attract
Mhm.
what you're in harmony with, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the way you avoid this, right, or you make sure you don't get the representative, is you have to be what you're looking to attract. And when we start talking about that, that
Mhm.
means you've vetted your standards so well and you're living to them so well that your intuition is queued up to that, right? See, what people don't understand about intuition is it's a byproduct of subconscious thoughts all pieced together, all the information, the little nuances and the little details that your brain picks up on that you consciously aren't aware of, it
Yeah.
collects it, stores it, and it processes it based off of how you live. So if
Mhm.
you live in certain ways and there's certain things you do or do not do because it gets you a really good result or does not, then it loads it in there and says, well, if I see this, even if you're not thinking of it, we're going to alert you that something feels off or something feels right, one or
Mhm.
the other, right? Based off of
Mhm.
what you're doing to get the results in your life that feels good or feels bad. So whenever you do a really good job at vetting and breaking down those standards and living to them and doing it to a really healthy degree, then now when you're in front of someone that is putting forth the representative, you start becoming aware because the way they're operating, it makes so let's say the person is awesome. You're like, wow, so far they seem great. But
Mhm.
because you are living to a certain standard and you've learned, okay, let me make sure that I put my best here when I come to this date, but let me also make sure I'm showing them more who I am, make sure it's
Yeah.
because I know I'm gonna be excited. I know me,
Mhm.
self-awareness, right? I understand myself, and so therefore I'm gonna make sure that I'm not gonna show up and just be all super giddy. I'll make sure let me intentionally tone it down sometimes, or let me intentionally give them what the regular is gonna be like with me. Show them how I am on any given day, and not just keep trying
Mm.
to impress them, right? So
Mhm.
now that you get a habit of doing that, it starts cueing your brain up to say, okay, I'm seeing they're really excited and they're really in the dopamine, right? So I know how I have to intentionally calm myself down. I'm not seeing them do that. So let me ask some questions around their lifestyle or way of living in these areas. Let me ask them their motivations for why they do the thing they did for me this evening. So I can hear a trail that shows me a foundation that that's just who you are, not just your good qualities that you pulled out to the forefront that you haven't built the habits to actually sustain long term.
Mm.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And so I was thinking when you were talking, back to the euphoria, and you've mentioned dopamine
Mm-hmm.
several
Mm-hmm.
times. Like, is there a distinction between, like, are you in constant dopamine when you're in the
In a relationship.
euphoria stage? You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's funny. Okay, here's the best way I would say it. So I think the dopamine and the oxytocin feel right to where the love hormones and all the excitement, all that stuff is like
Mhm.
a drug is going on. I
Mhm.
think that is more particular to the honeymoon stage and so forth. But when you're in a sustainable, healthy relationship, you're not always in this constant state of dopamine and oxytocin, but you feel it very regularly. It's like it turns on in moments often and frequent, and then you have your normal moments where it just feels at peace, right?
It makes
Because
so much
it's
sense. Yeah.
yeah, and and I'll be the first to say because I never want anyone to have the wrong impression. No relationship is supposed to be perfect because you're always two individuals living
Mhm.
and working and becoming one. So of course
Mhm.
you have your bumps and your things like I do in my relationship, but
Mhm.
the things in mine are very minuscule in comparison to the artery issues people are out there dealing with, right?
Mhm.
Mine is like agreeing on what when the trash should go out or the way
Yeah.
to clean something, right?
Yeah.
But it's not, artery issue of us just communicating and
Mhm.
how we're talking to each other in different ways, or
Mhm.
how we're treating each other, or respecting the boundaries for each other and not, violate them in major, all that stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But you definitely feel a consistency of love. It's just not always super intense, but then you have a lot of frequent moments where it is intense, and you
Mhm.
kind of balance out at a good space, and then you have these exciting highs, and then back to a good space. You don't usually go to the highs and then really bad lows, and then way
Right.
back up the high, to where it's on this toxic roller coaster. You don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Great segue into what I'm about to ask. So, chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually the buzzword around
Yeah.
relationships, and you tend to believe that great chemistry isn't enough. You talk about commitment and consistency. My
Mm-hmm.
two C's were consistency and communication. So I'm going to
Yeah.
ask, as you talk about them, can you include communication? Because it's like in my head,
Yeah.
that's been a thing, that's been a challenge. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And here's the thing: the communication is a part of the consistency, right?
Mm,
It's when I say consistency, it means consistency of all the things required to make this relationship operate in a healthy manner.
mm,
And your relationship will not function in a healthy manner if you cannot understand the other human across from you and they understand you back. Like it just doesn't work, and that you don't come to an agreed space on how you're going to operate together in respect to the things you guys communicate about.
mhm,
So, the chemistry may be how effortlessly you guys do share similar conversation topics to talk about and how well you're yoking that. But
mhm,
then it becomes all right, how well are we vetted out on what our communication styles will be in times of conflict? How will we resolve matters? What will we do to make sure we respect one another? What kind of practice do we need to put in place, if necessary, to make sure we both are hearing each other and not just listening to respond or just
yeah,
cutting in every 2 seconds on each other, things
mhm,
like that, right? Just like how do we respect and honor each other's boundaries? How do you need to be loved? How do I
mhm,
need to show up for you? And here's how I would like for you to show up for me, right? The space offered for me to let you show up and love on me the way that you prefer, maybe versus how I prefer, but then also you thinking of how I like to be loved and doing it my way for me, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
what is our future plans and goals looking like, and how are we aligned on towards that? Have we agreed on how we're going to, manage finances and what we believe about investing in things like that? Family dynamics, the kids, right? If we're going to move, career paths, the direction I'm looking to go in life and the direction you're looking to go in life. Is that the same
Mm-hmm.
way? Coming back to that fulfillment, right? Back to that
Yeah.
purpose. Are we
Mm-hmm.
both on that same overall way? It's all those things that you have to get clear on, and what's the healthy, sustainable way that we do these things, and then be consistent in those actions, because people have chemistry and they really blend well together. And it's like, wow, this is such a beautiful thing. But then they don't get clear on what needs to happen to make this continue going, and they fall off. And then
Mm-hmm.
the commitment piece, coupled with that, is the best way you're going to stay committed or stay consistent is if you are every day committing to the other person.
Yeah.
That, and it's important to say commitment and consistency, because consistency can just become a mindless operation, so where you're just doing but you're not putting the authenticity into it, or putting the effort in to make it
Mm-hmm.
genuine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But whenever you are committing to something, that starts scratching on your principles and your morals. That scratches on your core values that you live by, that makes you you. And so when
Mm-hmm.
you're saying I'm committing to this person, it has a different weight to it than, oh, I'm just being consistent in these actions. Because
Yeah.
now I have to consciously be aware that in the moments where it's hard for me to want to do it, I've committed something to you, and that matters to me because I'm a person of principle, and I don't just make commitments loosely, right? But
Yeah.
and I just want to tie this last little piece to that. Notice how, in order for that to all work, you have to be living in accordance to your standards that helps you be and see yourself as the person you want to be. So you go to sleep at night and feel like that good person. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have that, or you haven't found it in yourself because you're spending too much time looking outside of yourself instead of looking internally to find that inner peace, then whenever you turn to try to commit to someone and be consistent as a byproduct, you're going to fail miserably, because you're not actually anchored and connected to the principles and the values and the morals that are associated with your commitments.
This is going to be like the make it make sense moment. So,
Yeah.
you have a notion as to why a person's partner would continuously cheat.
Oh, absolutely.
What's
And
your notion on that?
unmet needs. The simplest
Mm.
way I can say it. But to kind of, I guess, break it down a little bit more, you know, obviously someone could say, oh, well, their needs not getting met doesn't give them permission to cheat. No, it doesn't. Correct. But we only do anything in life in an attempt to meet our needs. We only do things that we think will benefit us, whether it's a conscious thought or a subconscious one, right?
Mhm.
Like, why would you do anything if you don't feel like it's going to give me some sort of outcome? Even if you feel you need to run from something to go get something done, and you don't think it's going to benefit you overall, it may. So I guess I'll say it like this: if your partner goes and they cheat, right, and they keep doing it, and you guys be having these conversations, they know it's going to be stressful and it's going to be this whole blow up if they get caught. They understand that, but they feel they can't come to you about maybe one of their needs, and they feel like, oh, I never feel loved enough, or I don't feel like I'm special, or I don't,
Mhm.
you don't love me the way I want to, or maybe in the bed I'm starved, right? So if
Mhm.
that's the case, then in order for me to get this need met, even though it might bring me more drama if I get caught, it's going to benefit me. And that's the only way I believe I can get the need met. So really, it comes back to your partner not trusting and believing in them being able to get the needs met through you. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, where we need to have a conversation initially about, the apologies needed for the cheating, and making the declaration to never do it again. We have to get down to the bottom as to why your partner felt the need to cheat in the first place, to where there may be some accountability on your end to say, okay, I can honestly say I did drop the ball in helping you meet that need there. But then on their end, it's like, hey, you have to articulate this. Your partner needs to communicate it. And that's
Mhm.
where that fundamental communication piece comes in. Open, honest communication. If you can't be honest about these things, it's not going to work. But I would say the last thing on that, what makes it so hard for people to be honest in those moments, because you get scared that if I'm too honest, you may leave me, or you may
Yeah.
reject me, or you may not
Yeah.
accept me anymore, and all those
Mhm.
things. And then people just choose to stay quiet and just slip out and do what they got to do to get their needs met, instead of locking in and living in the truth.
Yeah. Um, Before you tell us about your book and tell us about how we can reach you, um, Break down the push-pull method for me quickly.
Yeah. So the push pull method is an unhealthy method. By the way, let me say that it's
Mhm,
something that
mhm,
people in relationships that are being manipulative, whether it's intentional or subconscious, are doing.
mhm,
Is it's almost people would call it sometimes love bombing in a sense,
mhm.
to where it's
Okay.
in yeah, it's like in the beginning stages of you dating someone where they are showering you with all the affection and the love and so forth, right? And they're diving into your whole world and you're their everything, and as you kind of get close to them and you guys are really bonding and connecting, they instantly go cold on you. They kind of push away,
Mhm,
right? So they
mhm,
pull you in until you're really roped and solid. Then they push away randomly for reasons you don't really understand. And what
mhm.
it does is it throws you into a spiral of trying to figure things out, which naturally your brain is built to give you answers. And you start second
Yes.
guessing yourself, start questioning your way of operating in there. The reason
Mhm,
why it's dangerous is because it exposes how much you're truly loving yourself, right? Because it's going
mhm,
to show you if you're willing to start all of a sudden bending and chasing that person after they start operating this way, instead of questioning why they're operating this way first, then it's showing that you're not so solid in believing in your value or how you operate to where you're thinking, oh, I might be the problem. Let me go earn and grab this love. You're not loving yourself enough to where you need it from them. Versus you recognize them doing this and you intelligently ask questions. Hey, this is something that I did do. Can you let me know? And let's discuss it. And if they're not giving you clear answers, or you're saying things that you can't vet as to making sense to you, or they continue to be distanced, then you just let them go. Right?
yeah.
Big difference. But yeah, that's the pull, the push and pull method and what it exposes to you.
Tell us a little bit about your book and where we can find it.
Yes, my book, Joker Proof Dating, unlocking the
Mhm,
secrets to vetting a man in minutes, right?
mhm,
So, out of a lot of things we talked about here today, it's kind of more of a laser focused and detailed breakdown of how
mhm,
women can actually learn how to vet a man within the first 5 to 10 minutes, if not by the end of the first date, to know if going on a second date with him is worth it or not, right?
mhm,
And if not after that first date, within at least the first couple of weeks to a month, you will know exactly if he makes sense, and you'll know how to choose the best man for you, right? Now, the journey in that book is what really does it for you, because anyone can give you tips and tools and little
mhm,
tricks, right? But
mhm,
all tricks are best at is what people that don't know how to get around this, right? If you know how
mhm.
to put up the right front representative, right, then
Yeah.
now it's not going to help you with these tips and tools. But
Mhm,
what the book really does is it teaches you how to use one of the best organic things women have, which is their intuition, to the best of your ability, to your advantage. It teaches you
mhm.
how to train your intuition to look out for the right things you need to look out for, and not just signal you on some of the major things, but after it's too late, after you already been dealing with the guy for 6 months to a year, 2 years, or
Yeah.
whatever, and now
Mhm,
you're just now starting to really catch these bigger things, right? It
mhm,
helps you dial your intuition down and in to where you can catch these things really fast up front.
mhm.
That's the fastest way I can kind of say that. And you can find it on Amazon right now. You just go there, just search. You put Los Acie or just put Joker Proof Dating, and you'll see me come up on there.
Okay. And how can we reach you? Tell us the platforms in which we can reach you.
I'm everywhere. So
You sure are.
yeah, but YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, or even TikTok at actually no, let's take the Facebook out because it's a different name for that. But Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Coach Los Rewired, and it's just Los AC on Facebook.
And that's LOSACIE.
CIE. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad again that you were able to come and talk with me today. I really do
Likewise.
appreciate it, and I hope that you'll come back. What a great conversation! And we look forward to having you guys back. Same chat channel, same chat time next Saturday here on 94.7 FM. We will see you then.
Awesome. Thanks for